Hey everybody, it's me the Sextrovert, and today is a very special episode because we're going to be cooking today. Not quite cooking, kind of making a homemade concoction. This concoction will be used as a lubricant that you can use for any sex act and on any toy. That's because there's just two very simple ingredients. See, there are lots of times where I've wanted to use a fleshlight toy and I just didn't have any lube. And now it's really hard to use any sex toy without lube. It pretty much at least what gets the party started. So there have been a few times that I've been without lube and it's been too late for me to pick some up. So I went online and started looking for the best DIY lube recipes. This one that I'm about to go over is pretty much the only one that will show up time and time again. And the other recipes out there, pretty much it's just take something that could be lube on its own, put in a couple drops of essential oils, and suddenly you've made something, which I totally disagree with. I don't think that's DIY, that's like DI didn't. But anyways, let's actually stay on topic here. What you're gonna need is 1 cup of water for every 4 teaspoons of cornstarch. You can use flour if you don't have cornstarch. You're just going to have to use approximately twice as much. It's going to be a bit harder to stir in together, and there's going to be gluten in it now if you were to use flour. So that should be kept in mind if you need to be G-free. Next, you're going to want to put the temperature of the stove up to either medium or high. My goal is I try to get it pretty much as close to boiling as possible, and then I take it off. See, I noticed a couple recipes said you could just use medium or low heat, and the thing is, it'll just stay the way it is now every time I did that. Or I just would have had to wait like half an hour stirring this, which I just didn't want to do. If you actually want it to goop up and work nicely, you're gonna have to pretty much add some heat and just keep stirring. I would recommend a whisk, but in the absence of one, I use this bottle opener with a pretty lady on it. So the thing is too, when I noticed measuring out the cornstarch, it can be kind of difficult to actually get exactly 4 teaspoons. And I mean, no one specifies if they're heaping or level teaspoons. So the real beauty of this project for homemade lube, in my opinion, is that because it's so simple, like the concept is you're just using starch to thicken water. It's really nothing crazy. Which means that for some projects I usually get anxious about because I'm worried that I might mess them up, right? And all the ingredients and time will be wasted. With this, it's just a matter of if it comes out too thick, you should add more water. If it comes out too thin, add more starch. You can pretty much do this forever in the same pot, and you'll keep going till you run out of pot. Now, if there's one thing I know, it's people don't like running out of pot. So I would really suggest that you kind of learn every time you make this lube the ideal ratios for you, just based on how you mix things, how you measure things, and how you want your lube to be. So now we're actually starting to get some heat, and it's going to thicken up any time now. See, if I end up cutting this video out, it might just be because I almost ran out of things to say, but essentially the only thing left is to just stir it as it continues to get hotter. It's eventually going to begin clumping up, and at that point I take it off the heat, I turn the oven off, and then I just keep stirring it as it cools. The one pitfall, I suppose, out of my method of bringing it to near boiling is that you will have to prepare it a little bit ahead of time if you want to get to using it immediately. From the pouring to cooled off and ready to use, it's maybe 10-15 minutes. It's really not an excessively long procedure. So once I'm done here, I'm going to strain this into another container so I can show you guys more of what's going on here. You can see now that it's kind of starting to clump up, but like I said, the rest of the process is just me stirring and trying to get it all together. So I'm going to see you guys over at my table once I have a sample of the finished product. All right. After what I hope is a really well-timed and made transition, we're back at the table and we can actually look at the finished product. Like I said, all I did was pour the lube into a different cup after it cooled down, which took maybe 10 minutes. I poured it into the cup when it was still kind of warm, and I put it in the fridge for just a little bit. But the bottom line is it's kind of changed consistency since then, as you can see. Now, I'm going to try and show off all of the different physical attributes of the lube once it's done. I will say that there is one thing worth noticing, and that is with my lube, it's very runny. See, it still sticks together in globs and it doesn't really pour everywhere necessarily, but I actually think that this particular batch was just a bit too thin for my liking. Now, a simple solution to that without having to really do more would just be to apply more when I'm using it. It's pretty long lasting, and as you can see, the shine on my fingers is quite noticeable. Now, I'm going to show an example from a different batch that I made. See, I actually thought that it was never going to clump up the first time I made it, like a fool, but I just kept adding cornstarch more and more until eventually this was actually what settled in the pot. Remember, I had a whole pot full of this at one point, but this is just all I managed to save. And you can see once you have more starch, it's harder to rub it in, and it kind of, the difference is a thinner lube will be much more slick, but a thicker lube will last longer. So there's a healthy middle for everyone's taste, where you get the perfect amount of slipperiness, but you also don't need to reapply it every 30 seconds. Like I said, I could probably just add another teaspoon of cornstarch at this point, and that would fix that. When it comes to the other attributes, it smells just like cornstarch or flour would if you were to open up the bag and sniff it. No surprise there. And I have done a taste test, but let me just do a refreshed one. So the taste is very neutral. Like if you've ever eaten spaghetti noodles that are completely raw and uncooked, it kind of tastes like that. Or maybe another way I would describe it is that it tastes like how a potato smells, because it's just starch. So that really ties in to why this is such a great recipe for homemade lube. The whole point of it is, it's that you can use it with condoms, you can use it with any toy. It does not taste awful. So let's say oral or just certain sex acts that you don't want some nasty foul tasting lube on you. It's great for that. It's natural, it's organic, and if you use cornstarch, it's even gluten-free, which I really don't think is a big concern with lubes to begin with, but I digress. It's just, in short, in just 10 to 15 minutes, using two of pretty much the cheapest and most plentiful ingredients in any house, you can have yourself some lube without having to drive to a gas station or a pharmacy or anything like that. There have been quite a few times where I find out that my lube store wasn't quite as dense as I thought it was, and I ran out. And it's just, this has really gotten me through that, because I was able to lube up my toys, have my fun, and it was still safe on the toy, completely water-based. There's just no concerns at all. It works how I like it to. I still normally use lube like Flesh Lube water or some other water-based lubes that are commonly available, because there's just more longevity. There's a lot less personal cooking and tuning required. But once you find out your blend, you're pretty much good to go. So I think that this lube is really worthwhile, and if you're trying to make a lube at home, it's pretty much the only one that you'll actually have the ingredients for and that actually works and has no strings attached. So I'd like to thank everyone for watching this video. If you could please like and subscribe, comment if you actually have a different recipe I wasn't able to find online. Who knows what kind of grandma's old family recipes are kicking out there for lube. I'm excited to hear them, and I hope to hear from you guys soon. Bye bye.